Who causes black people's poor leadership responsibility? It is clear melanin dominant race faces endless violence, wars, famine, poverty, corruption, and sellout attitudes. Who is responsible? Who is to blame? What can be done? The shocking answer may be that it's not the leadership or even the enslaver or old colonizer or new colonizer. But who is responsible? Before that, let us deal with the leadership issue first. Then we will conclude with the matter of responsibility. Leadership involves leading a group of people, a continent or country in terms of doing any work, development. Good leader or good leaders achieve targets efficiently and create opportunities for their countries or families or themselves. It is not simple, yes, but others have been able to deliver. Why is Africa such a mess? Who is responsible? Who is to blame? The answer is shocking, for we have been barking at the wrong tree all along. These are the leadership qualities that we look forward to. There are some of them. These are from the bohatala.com leadership qualities in business management research paper as an example. That's supportive, inspirational, problem solver, creative, honest, highly committed, reflective and decisive, and passionate. So these are very simple qualities and characteristics and traits that anybody can develop. But they are very difficult for any African leader or any African to develop. What's the problem? Before we review the real source, allow us to demonstrate the type of leadership we experience in Black Africa and perhaps in other indigenous populations all over the earth. Consider this fact. Soldiers and riot police harassing civilians in many African countries, specifically Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, Kenya, and the governments claim to have been elected by the people for the people. But somebody else instructed them that there is COVID, everybody indoors. And without consultation, without going to those people that elected you into office, they sent the riot police and the army to beat up and kill people in the streets, innocent civilians, most of them struggling to make ends meet. They are good at ignoring the needs of their own people, but ready to please and protect foreigners. There is a soldier here beating up a disabled man from a wheelchair, and the government has sent him to clear the streets. The military police, they are just beating up everybody without any responsibility. But you have people dying in factories where the owners lock the doors, and the riot police as well as the military police and the army are mum and quiet and in the barracks and accusing the dead for being in the factory instead of escaping, instead of prosecuting or even lynching the owners of these factories. Nigeria factory fire kills 37. A factory fire killed at least 37 people in Lagos, sparking rioting amid rumors that locked doors and prevented workers from escaping. The Chinese owners of these West African rubber products were supposed to be lynched, but the police intervened after local residents invaded the plant and attempted to lynch the owners of the factory. This is the government and leadership that we have in Africa. You can go to news.bbc.com.uk to find that story. Again, education, miseducation. This is the wrong map of Africa, accepted by all citizens of Africa and all over the earth. Even if we have demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that is not the map of Africa, they continue to say, yes, it is Africa. Forget about the Middle East. In order to overcome shortages of essential minerals, China came up with a strategy known as two resources, two markets, and they launched it in 2006. And therefore, the Chinese companies rushed into Africa, and today, you see the red here are the Chinese mining companies. The scope of Chinese expansion in Africa is mind-blowing. The Chinese scramble to mine minerals in Africa, whilst African citizens queue and line up and go to university to study to be employed by the Chinese. In this example, who is the real cause of Africa's leadership crisis? The government, the international community, the former colonizer, the enslaver, or the politician? Is it the leadership that is so short-sighted they think China is their best friend? Or the masses are so nice to foreigners, they welcome them? China's built a new military base which is set to protect its large claims and gold diamonds in Zimbabwe. And also they put in their surface-to-air missile launchers. According to former Minister of ex-President Robert Mugabe's administration, China has been planning on sending the special forces to the country since 2014 to offer technical assistance and support for what? Is Africa at war with anybody? To Zimbabwe National Army. Why? So that they can kill citizens. That's it. No two ways about that. That's what they're good at. However, Mugabe called off the plan several years ago after accusing the Chinese of corruption and the plunder of natural resources in Maranke and I assume all over the country. So the men realized later that the Chinese are not good friends. I wonder where the coup thing came from. But who is responsible anyway for Africa's leadership crisis? Let's find out. There again, another president in Uganda who sent the army to protect Chinese against attack, while our own people in China are being attacked and violently abused and brutalized by the Chinese. And this same government is forcing people to learn Mandarin, to adopt Chinese culture, to intermarry with Chinese. This same President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Go to this YouTube and watch what is happening over Africa. Whether it be economic, political, social, cultural, health, equity, and fairness, earth-wide planning dominant people and the folks, especially in Africa, our leadership sucks. Consider the following scenarios too and answer who is to blame. There is the Chinese supplying 6 million medical items that include face masks, test kits, face shields, and protective suits in Addis Ababa. All over Africa, the Chinese are sending this to fight the spread of COVID in Africa. But they couldn't stop it in China. And they are refusing to have it investigated. Multiple videos show Chinese people evicting Africans because they claim Africans could be spreading the coronavirus in China. But the coronavirus came from Wuhan in China. That fact should be understood by everybody. It came here. That's where it was, in Wuhan, in China. That's where the COVID came from. And now they're sending people all over Nigeria receiving 18 Chinese medical experts to fight coronavirus, which came from China. There was no coronavirus in Africa at all. African leadership has not retorted and reversed or said no to this. They are quiet and mum. Poorest continent. Wrong, but correct. Lepo. Anyway, Africa is the richest continent. It has over 50% of the world's gold, most of the world's diamonds and chromium, 90% of the cobalt, 40% of the world's potential hydroelectric power, 65% of the manganese, millions of acres of untilled farmland. Africa can feed the whole world. So China is coming to take over this land. And African leadership and African leaders and many of us are quiet about that. When we cry, who is to blame? Let's consider and look and ask a sitting president, a very popular sitting president, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda. Here is what he said when he was asked about this. He said, Africa has been struggling to follow the West. And some were following the East. Look, East policy. And now that system is crumbling. So they're blaming others. You see, there's nothing they're responsible. No. First, I've never heard any politician, soldier, police, government minister, preacher man, or prophet, or anyone, or any citizen whatsoever saying, perhaps I am responsible for the cause of Africa's perennial crisis. It's always somebody else. Why? Even former President Obama told African leaders to look into themselves for the underdevelopment rather than blame colonialism. Was he right? Was he wrong? Can colonialism and slavery still be blamed for Africa's problems today, or should Africans take responsibility for the poor management of their countries or their continent? This is the best question ever. Consider the fact that we are witnessing today as we live the recolonization of Africa by China and the exploitation of all mineral resources, destruction of our natural resources, animals, and continent by the Chinese and many others. And we are quiet. Who do you think our ancestors blamed when they witnessed slavery and colonization during their days? They blamed others. Can you now say I am responsible for that and for these things that are happening and I am the solution? You can't. You are scared. You blame others. Who takes the blame? Few, if any. Why? It means when you take the blame that you admit that you are responsible for what is happening and that you are wrong. Our ego is so huge, has been trained to refuse to admit this by any means necessary. Blaming others is very easy. Self-introspection is the hardest thinking you can ever do, and actions afterwards by any stretch of imagination. I want to admit today, for the first time perhaps, that I am responsible. What about you? What about you? It's always easy to blame others, but I blame myself today. You can spend the rest of your entire life blaming the world, but your successes and failures are entirely your own responsibility, Africa. That's what I'm telling you. Startling.com. Therefore, because of that, I shall act to revamp the type of education and skills to save myself and my family, friends, and nation. I know that the system in the world educates us away from our real identity, trains us to act against our divine rights, and promotes warped, evolutionary-based thinking process. It incentivizes us to always engage in servant-follower, self-image type of life. I shall activate my totems and abhor useless identities based on imposed national states. I shall ignore colonialist imposed boundaries and recognize that the whole earth is my continent and Africa my country. I shall refuse to spew out hatred towards any melanin dominant humans and shall never call them foreigners again. I shall ignore useless democratic systems and be smart on the legal penal code from governments and states that do not represent my culture. This is in order to turn around, and I must adopt great leadership qualities: creative, problem solver, supportive, inspirational, honest, highly committed, passionate, reflective, and I am responsible for everything. This is a serious action-oriented initiative for those whose heart and mind wants real change. Join us at join@marifado.com and let us implement this exciting confession first and a change at the grassroots level as fast as possible. Subscribe to our channel, Hamid Iburu Ethics. This preacher Rabbi LM Dumizulu, Siabonga, Tatenta, Salani Katle.